To see just how much the fickle loyalty of the samurai was a problem during this time period, let's take a look at the Ashikaga dynasty overall, or as I like to call it, during the later period, the Ashikaga dynasty. Yeah, great joke. I got it from my advisor at University of California, Santa Barbara, so you can blame him for this particular joke. But it does, I think, get at something very important, in that the later period of the Muromachi shogunate, the Ashikagas shogunate, basically was defined by death, murder, and backstabbing. Over 231 years of the entire dynasty, the entire Ashikaga dynasty, there were 16 shoguns. And of the first 7, until the succession of the 8th shogun in 1443, only 1 was assassinated. So the first 7 shoguns, only 1 died an unnatural death. Let's put it that way. Then, of the last 8 shoguns, the guy who came to the throne in 1443 was the first one in this line. Of the last 8 shoguns, 100% were assassinated, died in war. That's a misspelling. Please forgive me for that. Died in war against their own retainers, or died in exile after being deposed. So of the 8 shoguns, of the last 8 shoguns, all of them met a bad end because they could not secure the loyalty of their own retainers. And in 1467, there was an event that really started this trend. And that, I'm sorry, yeah, 1467, sure. And that is the Onin War, this event was. The Onin War was a relatively short war, but a very, very nasty one that really, in some ways, decapitated the Ashikaga shogunate, and certainly decapitated the many of the great samurai houses as well, and led to a general breakdown in order, even more so than what was seen before. And even during this period of the Ashikaga supremacy that we talked about last time, there were challenges to Ashikaga rule, there were samurai rebellions, but after the Onin War, they became truly endemic and much, much, much more serious. What was the Onin War? The shogun who had succeeded in 1443, Ashikaga Yoshimasa, Ashikaga Yoshimitsu's grandson, had no heir. And that was why in 1467 he recalled his brother Yoshimi from a monastery. Yoshimi had taken the tonsure. He was supposedly removed from the cares of this world. He had become a monk. And that was a way of dealing with potential challenges to the shogun. You made your brothers go to a monastery, or your uncle sometimes, or whoever was becoming increasingly pesky, so that they could not legally challenge your succession. If you were afraid of them, that's what you do, because you were expected to have sons. But Yoshimasa had no son. So he recalled his brother in 1464, and everything was fine until the next year, 1465, when Yoshimasa did have a son, Yoshihisa, very unexpectedly. And this was, of course, a moment of great instability, great potential danger, which, sure enough, exploded in 1467. Various factions back various the 2 different claimants to Ashikaga power. The Hosokawa clan, that great clan from western and central Japan, supported Yoshimi. I'm sorry, there's another typo. Yoshimi, that is the brother of Yoshimasa, who had been recalled. But the Yamana clan, another great clan from central Japan, supported Yoshihisa, the infant, well, not the infant, but the toddler at this point, the son of Yoshimasa. And Yoshimasa is still alive by this point. People are fighting over who's going to be his heir, and the great Shugo daimyo and the lead retainers of the Ashikaga, but also the retainers of many other great clans and hangers-on and various other people who want to somehow profit from this take sides. And the fighting spreads all over the country. It becomes concentrated increasingly, however, concentrated especially in Kyoto, in the capital city. And this is a disaster for the capital city. It is burnt almost to the ground, and it doesn't really ever recover its former glory. It gets rebuilt. It is still an incredibly important city, of course, even today, but really as the site of concentrated power and grandeur, it is significantly diminished after the Onion War. The fighting becomes so bad that the city becomes something that is more like a series of interlinked armed compounds. There's walls thrown up within the city, defensive works. Commoners get into the fight. Many are conscripted by various samurai factions. And what happens? Well, there's a great deal of death and destruction, but the people who are affected are sure the peasants, sure the merchants. They always get caught in between armies. But a lot of these great samurai basically gnaw themselves down to nothing. They fight each other to such an extent that many great clans collapse. Many retainer families are ruined, and there is a general destabilizing of the situation to the point where there's a lot of samurai who are now very comfortable with fighting each other at the drop of a hat and trying to profit from their neighbors' demise. And they are increasingly less and less mindful of the directions of the Ashikaga shoguns, who after this point increasingly become playthings for powerful daimyo. Whoever happens to control the shogun at that point, whoever is indispensable to a shogun as the independent military power of the Ashikaga, collapses. Remember, the Onion War was basically a internecine fight, a fight between Ashikaga factions. This situation repeats itself, and there are many other similar kinds of family disputes within the Ashikaga clan, but also within all of these other samurai clans. It's basically a time when the old certainties are becoming unmoored. And you get the rise of more and more independent local rulers, even more so than before. Some great families who started off as Shugo daimyo, they prosper and they do survive. The Uesugi, right here in Ichigo, the Takeda, based in Kai, sometimes controlling Shinano and part of other parts of central Japan as well. The Ouchi, who still are ensconced in western Japan. But there's also other kinds of daimyo as well. This area right here, the Kanto, used to be, and actually much of northern Japan as well, used to be Ashikaga territory, but that clan is being basically broken up, and so you get the emergence of new daimyo families like the Hojo. These are the later Hojo, completely unrelated genealogically to the earlier Hojo, but happen to arise in the same area, or close to it. They started off in Izu here. So they took the name Hojo once again to magnify their power, as I talked about earlier. And other clans, the Date clan, a very powerful clan, based around what is now Sendai. And these daimyo forge more and more what are starting to look like independent states.